Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you a couple of nifty tricks I use to play on multi-layered battle maps in Roll20, like this map of a castle that I've designed. Now it's important to note that in this video I use a combination of JPEG and PNG files. I'll get back to the why later on in this video, but you can just as easily stick to using JPEG files if you don't have the PNG layers provided. So first of all, we start by uploading our maps into the map layer and resizing them. All the maps I use in this example are 16 by 24 units, as you can see. I simply stack the maps by uploading them in the right order. Now the second step in this process, moving down a layer in our stack, is quite easy. You simply right-click the top map and select to move it to the GM layer. As soon as that happens, you'll notice the change in opacity of that layer, signifying that that layer now has become invisible to our players. The only issue here being that it hasn't become invisible for you, the GM. An issue we can't resolve in Roll20 directly, even though there is a GM opacity slider in our page settings, but one we can solve by running a JavaScript in our browser. This little piece of code, something I didn't write myself but had come across in the Roll20 forum, will remap the zoom slider and turn it into an opacity slider for the GM layer. Simply triple click the code and copy it. You can find the code in the doobly-doo down below. Then right click the bookmark on your browser and add a page. In order to be able to run this JavaScript, you just paste the code we've just copied into the field reserved for the URL and then give our bookmark an app name like a just GM layer. Now as we go back to our Roll20 page, nothing of notice has happened yet. The zoom slider is still just a zoom slider and the GM layer is still at its standard opacity. In order to change that, we simply run the JavaScript by clicking the bookmark we've just created, and voila! We've turned our zoom slider into a nifty slider for the opacity of our GM layer, making it possible for us to turn the layer we just moved there invisible whenever needed. Getting to the bottom of our stack of images has now become much easier, now that we can actually see what we're doing. Only when trying to achieve the reverse, moving from the bottom back to the top of our stack, is when we run into another issue on Roll20, as moving images from one layer to the next doesn't change the order they're stacked in, meaning that when we right-click the top asset, we don't click the asset we moved last, but the asset that was in front on our map layer. Just a minor issue of course, but one we need to take into account when moving assets back. I simply solve it by moving the assets down a row for the amount of images I have stacked underneath. In this case, it's 3 layers, so the first one goes down 2 rows and the second one just 1, making it easy for me to return them in the right order. Just right click and move to the map layer for the first asset, and then move the second asset back to the top of the page before you return that one to the map layer as well. Now like I've mentioned before, I use PNG layers for each level of my castle here instead of JPEG files. Even though it doesn't really change anything when doing this little dance, moving assets between the map layer and the GM layer, it does however give me a couple of interesting visual advantages. For when the player splits the party and I need to have both stories of my building visible at the same time, I can just slide the top layer down a bit and keep playing without needing to expand my page. I think that's about it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below or contact me via my website crossheadstudios.com. Until next time.